Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alexa, and today I'm doing my July reading wrap up. We're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of July. There were some great books and some not so great books, so we're just going to jump right in because I have 14 books to talk about. Starting out with the first book that I read, which was actually an audiobook that I got from Libby. It is If We Ever Meet Again by Anna Huang. Now we are starting out extremely weak with this book because I did not like this book. It is basically following our main characters, Farah and Blake. They are on a study abroad trip in Shanghai for a year, and it's basically just a love story between them. But like the things that happen in this book, not only that, but the level of cringe in this book is so astronomically high. Like if this had not been an audiobook, I would have had such a hard time getting through this because of how cringe it was. And like, listen, I can be kind of a cringe person myself sometimes, or I can also understand like being cringe as a form of humor, but this just did not work. The only real reason that I ended up giving this 2 stars instead of 1 star is that for some sick and twisted reason, I really wanted to know what happened to this couple after this book ended. Like for some reason, I was to a degree mentally invested in these 2 people, these 2 fictional people. Besides that, there are pretty much minimal redeeming qualities about this book. I'm sorry if that's mean, but I have to stay true to my opinions on these books, and I stand by that opinion. Moving on to a much more positive note, I read a book on my Kindle, which was Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. This is the second book in the Amazon Prime Improbable Meet Cute series. So it's basically just like a short story series that Amazon Prime did with a bunch of popular romance authors. So I actually think this book is under 100 pages. I think it's around 97. I don't remember exactly, but basically in this book, a guy is trying to leave a note on his brother's partner's car for him, like as a favor, and he ends up putting it on the wrong car. And then that person happens to be an attractive single female, and she finds a way to like exchange notes back to him. And so they're kind of just having these exchanges via notes, but they've never met in person. And if you want to know what happens after that, you're gonna have to read the book. It's honestly so cute and so incredibly short, so I would recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read, oh my gosh, it's kind of water damaged because I read it at the pool, but it is The Most Fun We Ever Had by Claire Lombardo. This was a Reese's book club pick from earlier on in the year. I honestly don't remember what month this is from, but editing Alexa will look that up and put it on the screen. Basically, this book is about a husband and a wife, their 4 kids, and all of the families that those 4 kids create, as well as all the drama that those 4 kids create, which is a lot. It honestly took me a while to get into this book, but it's a good thing that I had 624 pages to get into this because this is a long book. You guys know that I don't really like long books that much, but I set out a goal in January to read all of Reese's book club picks this year, so I decided to trudge through this one, and I actually ended up really liking it to my surprise. Like, by no means do I think that it needed to be 600 pages, and this is gonna sound so mean, but I definitely think they could have just completely cut out the younger sister from this story and just had 3 kids. And it would have been shorter, and I feel like we wouldn't have lost that much from the story. And I'm a youngest child, so I'm not even trying to be a hater towards youngest children, but I feel like Grace did not really add anything to this story, unfortunately. But yeah, besides that, it's entertaining, it's captivating, and it doesn't need to be 600 pages long. I gave this book 4 stars. Oh, the next book, I loved this book. This is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. This is one of those books that I feel like if I say that I really liked this book and then someone reads it and sees what it's really about, they're gonna think I'm really weird for liking it. This is the most unique coming of age story I have ever read. We are basically following our main character Natsuki, and she believes that she is an alien from another planet. Her best friend is this sweet little toy hedgehog named Pute. And she's also really good friends with her cousin Yu, who she only sees occasionally at family events. Then a sequence of events tears Natsuki and Yu's relationship apart, but they make a pact to survive no matter what. Then in her older years, she becomes reunited with Yu. And that's all I can really say about this book without giving anything away. There are so many crazy and shocking elements to this book that I was not expecting whatsoever. I mean, look at the cover. I thought this was just going to be a cute little novel about a silly girl who's a little delusional. It is that, but subtract cute and exchange that with jaw-dropping, twisted, and horrific. Like I said, this is a weird book, and if I recommend this to anyone and then they don't like it, they'll definitely think that I'm weird for liking this book. So with all that being said, I would say to check the trigger warnings if you want to read this book. Proceed with caution. I say read this if you want to read this, not because I recommended it to you. But if you do decide to read it, I really hope you enjoy it, and I definitely need someone that has read this book to talk about it with me. So if anybody has read this or ends up reading this, I need to talk to you about this. Also, I gave that book 4 stars. I was honestly really close to giving it 5 stars. I honestly think next month I'm going to have to do half-star ratings. As much as I hate half-star ratings, and what I hate more than half-star ratings is quarter-star ratings, which I won't be doing yet. At this point, I have read so many books that I feel like I just need to expand my scale of ratings, because I've given a lot of books 4 stars, but I feel like not all of them are exactly on the same 4-star level, if that makes any sense. So like really some of them would be like a 3.5 or a 4.5. So like in all honesty, this is more like a 4.5. But I'll start doing that like seriously like next month. The next book that I read, I absolutely loved and gave 5 stars, and it is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I think this was my one and only 5-star of this month. But yeah, basically this book is about Alex. She hosts a podcast and she has guests on the podcast that are women. They basically just talk about their lives and their stories. Then she has an unlikely encounter with this lady named Josie. They discover that they are birthday twins, and Alex decides to have Josie on her podcast because Josie is about to go through a big life change. And then basically we are just following these two characters, them recording the podcast and getting more information about both of them. The way that I'm describing this really does it such an injustice. This book is so good. If you like thrillers, I am begging you to pick this up and read it. The next book that I read was kind of an underwhelming one, and it is, I don't know how to say it, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I've really been wanting to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but I've heard a lot of people say that you need to read this one first, or else some stuff in that series will spoil stuff in this series. So I was like, whatever, let me just crack this one open and see what all the Stephanie Garber hype is about. I was a little underwhelmed by this one. So this book is basically about 2 sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, and they want to be a part of this basically magical competition called Caraval. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it. I'm just gonna say Caraval for now. There's this like game master and basically like all of these like whimsical things. Basically the whole vibe of it is that like everything is not as it seems. So you are just following their journey in trying to be a part of Caraval. I don't know, maybe I just saw like too much hype for this book on the internet, but I feel like it was a little bit underwhelming. But I've also seen that people like the other books in this series a lot better than the first one, so I may try to give those a chance. I gave this one 3 stars. The next book that I read literally got eaten by seagulls when I went to the beach one day. Like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that, but there are like literally like bites taken out of the pages, like dents and scratches on the cover. I was horrified when I came back to my towel to see this disrespectful monstrosity. But setting that terrible experience aside, the next book that I read in July was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I haven't tabbed a lot of books, but I did tab this one, and I'm very satisfied with the job that I did. This book is about Nora and Blake. Blake is an NFL player and Nora is a sports manager. They are high school exes and they are not in contact with each other anymore, except for when Nora gets assigned to be Derek's manager. So as the title implies, they decide to make a rule book of things that they cannot do to keep their relationship strictly professional. And yeah, I had a feeling that some of those rules were gonna get broken, but you're just gonna have to read this book to find out. I guess this is technically the second book in a series called The Cheat Sheet. I think the first book is called The Cheat Sheet, and then this is like the second book. But I believe that they're like interconnected standalones, so I think that you can read them in any order. I assume some of Derek's friends are like the main characters in the first book. I don't know though, I haven't read it yet, but I want to read it after reading this book because I gave this book 4 stars. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet at this one. The next book that I read in the month of July, I read not one, but 2 600+ page books. Yeah, hard to believe that I actually managed to do that, but I did. I read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. If you don't know, this is the second book in the Empyrean series, the book that comes after Fourth Wing. And to my surprise, I actually kind of liked this book. I went in with my expectations buried underneath the ground, like actually so low, just because of all of the negative reviews that I have seen on the internet about this book. But I ended up liking this way more than I expected, and I feel like it sets up the third book so well, and I'm actually really excited to read it. Hopefully I don't put it off as long as I put this one off. I gave this book 3 stars. The next book that I read is another audiobook that I got from Libby, and it is If the Sun Never Sets by Anna Huang. Yes, this is the book that comes after If We Ever Meet Again. And you might be wondering, Alexa, why did you read the second book in the series when you said that you really hated the first one and could barely get through it because it was so cringe? The real true reason is that I reserved both of them at the same time off of Libby, and the reservation was about to expire. I already had it in my library. I figured, why let it go to waste? It was such a short audiobook. I just figured, let me listen to it and just see if it gets any better. And I cannot believe that it actually did get better. I'm so glad that I gave this book a chance. I don't want to say too much about what this book is about because I feel like it's going to give away the first book. But basically, something happens and Blake and Farah haven't seen each other for a while. They reconnect, and the book is just, again, following the two of them. The cringe in this book was turned down to a almost non-existent level. So many problematic things from the first book were cleared up in the second book that made me like these characters so much more. I really can't say anything about it without spoiling anything, so I'll just leave it at that. If you feel like putting yourself through that, the second book is definitely worth getting through the first book. The next book that I read is The Cliffs by Courtney Sullivan. I listened to this one on audio as well, and it is the July pick for Reese's Book Club. This is basically like a fiction mystery, basically centered around this mysterious purple house on a cliff. There's a lot of like indigenous people's history within this book, which I really enjoyed. However, the book ended up being like a little bit heavier than I was expecting, dealing with a lot of themes of grief and difficult relationships and motherhood. I just wasn't really expecting all that going into the story. I kind of just thought it was going to be like a mystery and not so like character focused. But we do spend a lot of time with the characters in this book, and there are quite a few. I don't really even remember all of their names, that's why I'm not saying them. But yeah, I mean, this book is interesting, but I do not feel like I'm the target audience for this book. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The next book that I read is Stuck With You by Ali Hazelwood, which is one of her 3 STEM novellas. There is not much to this novella. It is literally 107 pages. It is about these 2 people that get stuck in an elevator together. Like, there's really not much I can say about it without saying the entire story, so if you want to read it, go for it. It's super short. It's fun, it's cute, it's nothing monumental. I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Housemaid is Watching by Frieda McFadden. This book, in my opinion, is a low 3. It just felt very predictable. The plot twists weren't twisting. This was not really a necessary addition to this series, in my opinion. I did, however, have to read it because of the sunken cost fallacy. I've invested too much time in Millie's life to stop reading books about her now. Honestly though, throughout the Housemaid series, I have really grown to love Millie as a character. Is she a questionable weirdo? Yes. Is she entertaining to read about? Yes. And I gave this a low 3 stars. The next book that I read is Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serle. This book just recently came out. This book has a little bit of magical realism sprinkled onto it. This book is about our main character, Daphne. She has been getting pieces of paper with a man's name on it and a period of time on it, such as Bob, 2 weeks. So she's basically being told how long she is going to be with each guy that she meets and dates. It's kind of just this like mysterious thing that like only happens to her and is not explained very in depth. Like, it was fun. I loved the concept of it, but I just feel like the magical realism in this one wasn't magical realisming in my brain. Like, I don't know, I kind of just wanted that part of the book to be fleshed out a little bit more. It was good, but I feel like the ending was quite rushed. I hardly ever say this, but I genuinely do wish that this book was longer. Like, let's just take a couple hundred pages out of one of these and put it in here. You know what I'm saying? The final book that I read in July is The Measure by Nikki Erlick. This is sort of like a, can I call it dystopian? I don't even know what word I'm looking for, but it's basically like the real world, but like an alternate universe kind of. Like, everything is realistic except for what I'm about to say. The whole premise of this book is that basically everybody gets a box on their front door one day and it has a string inside of it, and the string tells everyone how much longer they have to live. We are following a bunch of different characters and they all have varying string lengths. They all have a lot of different things going on, and it's also like semi-interwoven, like some of their paths do cross in like various ways. This is a super interesting book. It is a very old Read with Jenna pick, I believe. I'm not sure from what year or month, but editing Alexa will of course put it on the screen for you. But yeah, at the time that I am filming this, I have not fully decided what I want to rate this book. I think I'm somewhere between like a 3 and a 4 star. So hopefully editing Alexa knows what I rated this book by this point, and I will put it on the screen for you to let you know what my final rating of this book is. But yeah, this was my workbook club's pick for July. We're gonna be discussing this soon, and I'm very excited because it's going to be a super interesting discussion. But yeah, I have finally made it through all of the books that I read in July. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, if you guys liked this video, of course, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below letting me know anything you want to let me know. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram and make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss any videos from me in the future. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. This one is so ugly though. If you guys watch till the very end, you know that I'm gonna switch this book out for something else because I think it's too ugly to be in the thumbnail. You left your typewriter at my apartment, straight from the torture poet's department. Ha 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 ha.